Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Okay, so I'm getting set up here as RH. This is the Area 111 channel. I'm checking everything out. Going to go over there and check out Rumble, so stand by. Give me a minute or two. Kind of a little bit rusty. I haven't done a live stream in a long time. A lot of information to cover tonight. The title of the live stream is called Protective Custody. So hope people stick around. I'm going to have a guest on the panel tonight, The Search for Truth. And I just heard from them yesterday. So good to see you, Tanya. Man, you're right on top of everything. Love that beautiful wrench symbol you got beside your, I guess your name, whatever. But yeah, welcome. It's been a long time. Lot of stuff going on in my life, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on with everybody else's life. You know. So with that said, I'm going to check out Rumble real quick. So if y'all don't mind, please share the link. Either I would prefer y'all share the link to YouTube to maybe your friends and your followers, whatever, so we can have the information, which I think you're going to find very, very interesting. Now, President Trump's speech right before the fireworks show in D.C., which started around midnight, I watched the entire thing, and okay. Yeah, Camo. Yeah, you remember those old days, uh, RH was on the back of the caboose, I got knocked off the train by Mrs. RH with a frying pan, and it knocked me off that caboose. So, yeah, there was a big train crash back then in those days. But yeah, well, we have 80 viewers tonight, or so far. It's 7:23, but it's still daylight here in Central Florida. Got a lot of rain here the last few days. But I think you're going to find this very, very interesting. Okay, we went down from 30 viewers to 18. So stick around, stick around. Don't judge the avatar, and don't judge I don't have my beautiful, handsome, awesome face up there on the screen talking to y'all. But I like to keep my privacy at least a little bit. There's a lot of crazies out there, as most of y'all may know, or all of y'all may know. But I like to get the viewers' take on a couple of theories I have, and what President Trump said last night in his speech, which really, really, I paid really close attention to and did a lot of. Hey, Martha, good to see you. Yeah, I'm trying to stay, keep an eye on the chat too. Sometimes it's hard. I'm basically going off a smart/dumb phone. So let me see if I can post a comment, make sure it goes up on stage. So let's see here. Where's my normal kind of like call sign? Okay, so this is kind of like my calling card I'm putting up there when I go in the chat of the live streams. RH, I go by RH, Martha. Okay, just a quick, so in the chat, I'm going to post this up on the stage. If you see that, those icons that I posted in the chat, the two flags, music and two American flags, it's America, music for America, right? So anyways, that's what it, for me, represents. So I shared the link to Train Crash there, what do you call it? The search for the truth. And I'm waiting mainly for him. I'm going to go check out Rumble real quick. So remember, I'm doing all this alone. I don't have producers and, editors and all that stuff. I don't have a whole team working for me. But guess what? What's the advantage of not having a full studio? And I'm just coming out here giving all the information that I researched going on basically, I would say 18 years. This goes back to 2008. 2008. This goes back to basically the elections in 2008. So I think most of y'all may understand what I'm talking about there. And who got in office on January 20th of 2009? That would be Barry Soetoro Davis, or whatever his real name is, or Barack Hussein Obama. I'll go with that. But some people believe they can just change their name whenever they feel like it, right? So I guess men have the opportunity to change their name. But good to see you, Danny. Haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, happy Sunday. Happy first day of the week here. We're just getting spun up. So I got to go check out Rumble real quick. No, I didn't share the Rumble link to Truth Social like I normally do. So if anybody would like to do that, you're welcome to share the link, either YouTube or Rumble. Stick around. I think this is going to be quite a show. Quite a show. I don't know how many people out there are old enough to remember the Ed Sullivan show or not, but Lawrence Welk, I think they played back to back on Sundays back in the day when I was a little kid. But hold on a second. Let me see what's going on over there on Rumble. So again, the title for tonight's live stream is Protective Custody. Now, let's see here. Now, for those that are trying to find my Rumble channel, it's area 111 without no space between area and the numbers 111. And it's a blue avatar with a capital letter A, white letter A for area 111. Okay, that's my channel name. So if you click on Rumble, that app, Rumble app, and you click on the search bar, just click on channel and type in area 111 without the space, and you should find that capital letter A, white letter A with a blue background. Now the other channel is basically they haven't basically updated. There's only like 2 people are following or 0 followers or whatever. I have over 331 followers on area 111, and I've had over 100,000 views since I started this live stream over on Rumble. And after YouTube deplatformed me multiple times, I lost all my followers. That's the reason why you don't see thousands of followers at the heyday, at the beginning of Rumble and YouTube before they took me down. I was having thousands of viewers. So if you judge the channel based on the small amount of views, you might be missing out. So I'll give you a quick background real fast. I'm a retired Air Force Master Sergeant. I served 21 years honorably. Okay, I'm a decorated veteran. I'm not a highly decorated veteran. So there's nothing about stolen valor coming from this guy. Okay, so I was in command and control for a while, worked for NATO far as the 25th Regional Operational Control Center. I was a tracking technician, tracking supervisor, and in position only a tracking officer. Okay, for a short time before I had a change of duty. But anyways, let me get the Area 111 on Rumble spun up so I can see who's in the chat. Okay, so if you go to Rumble, there's a place card holder video, and I'm going to try to get into this. I'm going to share the link one more time. Let me see if I can share the link one more time to the Search for Truth. Stand by. Okay. Okay. I'm going to get back over to YouTube. Thank y'all for joining tonight. Now, if you look at the avatar on the Rumble channel, you're going to see 911. Now, this is all going to be information that ties into protective custody. Now, what is protective custody? It's for individuals, especially researchers or people inside our government that are honest and law-abiding, patriotic citizens of our country. Okay, where they've basically found information that is very, very, very troubling about broader criminal conspiracies to basically overthrow our government, overthrow administrations, overthrow and block campaigns of individuals trying to run for office, putting people on a watch list basically so they can monitor all their communications and block them sharing information to people up in higher positions of power in law enforcement. You can say the executive branch of government, the judicial branch of government, and the legislative branch of government. Now, this is quite common, even though it's not public. We don't know who's under protective custody, but it's quite common. A tactic our country uses to protect the salt of the earth out there that is willing to risk their lives to help stop criminal conspiracies and high crimes and misdemeanors. Okay, so Make sure I'm live on Rumble. Okay, so I see 3 viewers on Rumble. Thank you for being here. I'm going to be switching back to YouTube. Now, my YouTube channel basically has got a peace token. I think that's from General Custard, like a gold coin that's got a peace pipes on it. It's got peace on it. There's a coin. So you click on that channel, Area Space 111 on YouTube. If you check on that, click on that channel on YouTube, you can go to the live stream, which is currently underway. The title of the live stream again is Protective Custody. Okay, so I'm having a little bit of problem with avatars sticking on for some reason on Rumble, but I'm going to basically try to reinitiate that again. All right. I'm going to get caught up. Testing 1, 2. Wow, both the avatars disappeared for whatever reason. I don't know why. Testing 1, 2. Okay, so like I said, protective custody, and those people, some people, they might, try to lure them in and say, listen, we're going to give you protected custody, but you know what that means? That basically means you lose a lot of freedoms, right? And to keep you safe, they're going to play like babysitter over you, right? To ensure that you don't go out there and start talking about certain very sensitive topics, which might have been exposed by certain, let's say, detectives or whatever, or researchers in the media, for example. That's a common thing. I don't know if y'all remember Cheryl Atkinson as a journalist. I forgot what journal um, news agency she worked for, but remember they were monitoring and conducting surveillance on her, as far as her communications, even private communications, right? So let me see. I don't know why in the world that avatar is not sharing on YouTube, but anyways, now I'm going to go back and forth. Okay. I'm going to go back and forth, but remember keywords and remember current events, what's going on now. So if we go back to a time where a certain individual shared sensitive information to Acosta, the Attorney General of the state of Florida. Acosta is his last name. I can't remember his first name. But remember, these high profile people, remember, somebody was banned from Mar-a-Lago, the club at Mar-a-Lago. Somebody was banned from ever putting foot again, ever on Mar-a-Lago. And there was some sensitive information that was shared based on an individual. The individual, you can say, was tied into the Five Eyes. Five Eyes. Okay, so now when we're thinking about Five Eyes, I'd like y'all to focus on Echelon. Now, Edward Snowden basically released some information about Echelon and the spy apparatus used on people that don't basically take the mark and image of those people that are in power or the pursuit of power in the highest level positions of our government. Now, like I said, I'm going to be jumping back and forth, and remember keywords. This is very, very important. Keywords. So for those that are multilingual out there, you understand if your main language, your main language that you use, like for example, English, that's my main language I use. Now, if I'm being educated in foreign languages, you might know a few words in that language, but using keywords and phrases, sometimes you can put together the bigger picture. You can put it together like a puzzle. So anyways, I'm going to start putting some information out now, and the avatar picture, which for some reason won't come up on the screen, either on Rumble or YouTube. I don't know what's up with that. So I'm going to try to put that up there, but I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm going to tell you where to find it. As everyone knows, unless you're living under a rock or you're not from America, you're not American or anything, everybody knows Independence Day was yesterday, the 250th birthday of America and all us American citizens. You know, also for people that visit America, that they're tourists of America, you know, they have work visas, student visas, that kind of thing, that are here legally. Of course, a lot of those individuals, they celebrate along with us. So anyways, that avatar photograph, for whatever reason, won't pop up. There's not a copyright on that. It's a still shot of the movie Independence Day. Independence Day, that movie was basically, it came out in 1996. 1996. Okay? 1996. Let me repeat that again. Independence Day. Now, that time clock, 9/11, was when the motherships and the aliens were basically going to strike Washington, D.C. Remember that. Okay? The Independence Day movie. And if you want to watch that movie, if you have Tubi, all you got to do is go to the Tubi app. It's free. At least it is on my channel. Hey, Ken, great to see you. Yeah, we're here. And I'm going to try. We got a few extra viewers. We were up at 30 viewers at one time, and they dropped off because they don't know what channel it is. But we're going to tie all this together. So just basically, so if you go to Tubi again, now this is not the only bit, that's just one bit of the information I'm going to share tonight. You can watch Independence Day, the first one, I forgot what the second, if anybody want to put the second one, but I'm going to focus on that still shot of 9/11. That's when the alien forces was going to strike Washington, D.C., and basically major cities around the world, not just in America. I think it was California. Yeah, good to see you again, Tanya. And it's great to see everybody out there. If you don't mind, please share the information. There's going to be some information that I'm going to share tonight. I'm pretty sure nobody else has considered or heard before. If you have heard or considered this information, even as just a theory or a hunch or whatever, yeah, More power to you. More power to you. But stick around. I don't think you'll be disappointed. So again, I'm going to try to put that avatar photograph up there on the screen. Again. Now on my smartphone, I'm seeing the avatar with that timestamp of 9/11 on it. Okay. So now the guy that produced or the director of the movie Independence Day, he's a German citizen. I forgot his first and last name. He's known as the little Spielberg. He's known as the little what do you call that? Spielberg. Okay. Of course, Spielberg came out with the Disclosure movie. I haven't watched it yet. I haven't really heard any rave of views on it. I don't know if anybody watched it or not. If you want to plug in the comment section, what you think about that movie. But okay, so a lot of people know that like The Simpsons and all these shows like that they put out there, there's a lot of so-called prophecies or where it seems like some of these people in Hollywood, they basically are formed beforehand when major events occur. Now, remember when CNN was in tow with the SWAT team and the entire, like a military assault on, what's his name? Roger, what's Roger's last name again? I forgot Roger's last name. A friend of President Trump. Remember how they had ODark 30? You had CNN cameras already set up, and there's basically a huge, like almost an army, on his home at ODark 30. They basically let him walked him in front of the whole world. They could see that. Roger Stone. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Thank you all for there's a lot of so much information. I'm trying to do this impromptu. I don't have an outline, notes and stuff like that, and a script to read from. This is just look at this as casual, okay? So again, going back to, it seems like these people have a premonition, right? Especially in Hollywood. And if you're conducting surveillance on, and I would say illegal surveillance too, which is included in these people that are basically going off script and doing their own thing autonomously to try to take down, channels and people that have the information. They know it's the truth, and what they do is they'll block you, whatever. They'll deplatform you so you don't have the viewers you used to have, and demonetize you, and all kinds of nasty threats. They got their Antifada and Intifa, those organizations out there, go out there and try to start trouble with you. But okay, so going back to this, this information we're getting from a lot of these individuals on the inside in Hollywood, especially the directors. So Independence Day, basically this was the countdown. Remember the guy that got the code with our satellites, and basically he figured out how to plant a virus in the mothership, right? and basically turn off the barrier, the protective barrier around their ships, and even their little UFO like type flying disc. Those were all shot down to give opportunity to basically blow up their ships, and where all the barriers were taken down. So in that view right there, basically that stream shot of the movie 9/11. It says 9/11. Okay, that was when that mother ship was going to basically destroy Washington, D.C., destroy the Capitol building, right? And destroy the White House, basically all of D.C. It would basically decapitate our government and our leaders. What happened on 9/11? What was another premonition? It was a TV series, a premonition that something was going to happen before 9/11 actually occurred. Some people may know this as the pilot series Lone Wolf. The pilot series Lone Wolf was basically an episode where they caught these really bad hombres that were going to remotely control a civilian airliner and crash it into the tower or one of the towers. Okay? So there was a tactic, and a lot of us, especially people in the military that are familiar with drones that are made to look like commercial aircraft, and the history as far as Northwoods are concerned, okay, we know all about it. So the pilot series, Lone Wolf, it's a TV series. You can Google search it. You might have to pay for it, but for you to have the facts and put them all together, that's just part of it. Okay, so we all, those of us that have been in the military, I had a best friend in the military in the Air Force. He was part of the drone squadron. You know, we have live drones, and to make it as like realistic as possible, there's unmanned drones, and we use also piloted aircraft to conduct these exercises, right? So what is a drone? A drone is remotely piloted, right? It's got weapons on it, whatever. You remotely control the drone in many different ways. Sometimes they're guided by GPS systems within the drone to basically to fly autonomously without pilots to into their target area and take out the target area. So that's a fact. It's a fact that, you know, many people know already. I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. Okay, what is another type of premonition? For those that think, and they caught up with this, you know, their chatter about they need another Pearl Harbor type event. On February 17th of 1998, February 17th, 1998, C-SPAN still has that Iraqi situation report put out by President Clinton in the Pentagon, the briefing to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Now, that briefing had some clues in it, far as I'm concerned, in that briefing. Now, basically, the Iraqi situation report was a briefing given by multiple people. Al Gore actually gave a briefing too before President Clinton did. Okay, about you know, Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction. So people are caught up on George W. Bush, you know, saying that there's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He wasn't the initiator of that statement. It was actually Bill Clinton. In the Iraqi situation report on February 17th of 1998, and you can Google search that on C-SPAN. Now, the entire video on C-SPAN, I believe it's like over an hour. But if you fast forward to Bill Clinton's speech, he's talking to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he says, I know the people, when they're called, that are called upon in uniform are ready. He said right after that, at the 9/11 date and timestamp on the top of the C-SPAN video, the American people have to be ready as well. Now, that might be just a big coincidence. The pilot series, Lone Wolf pilot series, that might be just a coincidence. The little Steven Spielberg movie, the basically Independence Day, right on 9/11, was basically a clue because it actually was paused at 9/11. If you catch that and watch that video, pause it when you see the time 9/11. It actually pauses. That was 9/11, 9 minutes, 11 seconds before they were going to hit the White House and the Capitol building and to destroy the leadership of. And remember, on 9/11, what was their goal? Now, there was multiple goals as far as the 9/11 attack, in my opinion. They targeted the trade towers because that was a symbol of what? The free market society and capitalism. Now, have you ever heard this by any other channel or any other official put in these terms where you can understand it? Now, again, a lot of this has to do with my opinions and a lot of research. Believe me, hours and hours and hours of research. I was on active duty when the first tower hit. I was right across this hallway from the Intel branch. We walked over, once we started hearing stuff chatter, and we walked over to the Intel branch. We're watching it live on CNN. So they hit the towers because that was the symbol of capitalism. That's the reason why they hit the towers. Okay. Now, September 11th of 2001, for people's information, this might be just another coincidence. Remember Nikita Khrushchev? Remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, where if it wasn't for John F. Kennedy, there might have been a nuclear holocaust? Remember how close that came? Well, Nikita Khrushchev, that was his 30th anniversary, September 11th, 2001, of the communists, the Union Socialist Soviet Republic. That was his the 30th year anniversary for the death of Nikita Khrushchev. Is that just another coincidence? Is taking out the trade towers the symbol of capitalism, which basically defeated the Soviet Union during the Cold War, because they could not keep up with a free market society. Communism could not keep up. Now we're going to roll into some information that President Trump talked about, and those could be coincidences as well. So y'all can judge by yourself whether these are coincidences or not. So again, Independence Day, 9/11 was paused on that that countdown, on that clock, the countdown with the aliens. Okay, let's think about aliens in a different term. For those that don't believe in UFOs and UAEs and, you know, unidentified area phenomena, or however you're going to categorize extraterrestrial crafts that was not created. Think about the invasion. Now, in the mothership or whatever, when they went in and that tractor beam caught um, um, the good guys to go into there to plant that that virus, they went they were flying over a huge alien force, and they said in that alien force there must be millions of people, right? Millions of aliens. That's an invasion force. So what did we have from January 20th of 2021 to January 20th of 2025? What did we have? I'll tell you exactly what we have and what we have right now. And I'm going to use the Constitution to explain this in real terms, in real world terms. Stand by. I'm going to read Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution. And I'm breaking this down the best I can. So I'm turning to Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution. For 4 years, we endured these attacks on our country. Hundreds of thousands of American men, women, and children have died. A lot of men, women, and children have died based on fentanyl alone. Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution reads, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government, not a communist mayor in New York, not any communist, socialist, Democrat, or whatever, not a Democrat. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union, all 50 states, a Republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion. And on application of the legislature or of the executive, when the legislature cannot be convened, against domestic violence. Remember the summer of loves? They're just getting amped up again. Before November, they're gonna be amping up and doing the same old modus of operandi that they've been doing for years that has worked. So just like that mothership, it had over 1 million alien army to basically invade planet Earth. Doesn't that kind of like fit kind of nicely what's actually going on still to this day? Remember, they brought in at least 20 million people that we know of that came into our country in that 4-year term. 4-year. Isn't it kind of funny? The U.S. Supreme Court basically sat on their hands and allowed that to happen. U.S. Congress basically, for the most part, sat on their hands and allowed that to happen. The executive branch of our government sat on their hands and allowed that to happen. Why have they allowed this to occur? Whether it's extraterrestrial aliens or invasion, or it's terrestrial citizens from other hostile countries or countries or individuals that vehemently despise and hate America and all we stand for. Now, I'd like to remind a lot of people out there, I'm sure in this community, I'm not lecturing anybody here. Basically, believe me, I'm preaching with the choir. Article 4, Section 4 is the supreme law of the land. That's the President of the United States basically can use the justification for basically removing illegal aliens, especially those from hostile countries. You know, you can't judge a book by the cover. They could be out there waving American flags as high as they can get and saying they love America and all this stuff, but they have multiple allegiances. Okay? I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic, and have true faith and allegiance to the same. That means that you don't have other allegiances when you're in our government to any other country. Your allegiance is to America. And that's for a very, very good reason. The founders were very, 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 very intelligent. And they were divinely inspired to write the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Very, very intelligent. Okay, so here's the justification right here for the President of the United States, whether he declares a national emergency or whatever. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each and every one of them, every state. That doesn't mean if you're a blue state, you're not going to allow the President of the United States to basically fulfill his constitutional duties to make sure every state and every city, whether they are what do you call it? Protected, what do you call it? Protecting people coming here illegally and protecting people, giving them driver license so they can basically be registered to vote. You know, it's printing out counterfeits. That's all I'll say about that. There is official information that has been done before, printing out counterfeit driver license and other type of material. Voter registrations, remember Acorn, thousands of fraudulent voter registrations. I mean, you can look that up yourself. That's a factual statement. So, now think about this. These people knew, all these people that sat on their hands are those that directed the invasion into our country, whether it's for human trafficking, drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, or basically trafficking terrorist cells into our country. They're already here. Now, we just heard from the IRGC, or Iranian Islamic Republic of Iran leadership, basically declare war again on the United States and basically threatening our president again. They're threatening war on the United States of America. They didn't threaten war. They declared war again. at the Ayatollah funeral. The leadership, IRGC leadership and the Islamic Republic of Iran printed out the IRGC war flag. For a lot of people, there was hundreds of those flags being, so somebody that was premeditated to print those flags and disperse those flags among the population, to fly the flags that they are at war with the United States of America. Whether Congress believes we're at war or not, that's immaterial. The President of the United States has a job to perform. And anybody criminally obstructing the President of the United States of keeping each and every one safe the best he possibly can, with every instrument of power or defensive measure that he takes, if they continue to block the President of the United States of his constitutional duties, main constitutional duty, especially national security, those individuals can be arrested immediately on the spot. I'm tired of hearing, oh, this is just politics, RH. I'm tired of hearing that. The justification of the supreme law of land is what the president can use to basically capture and deport all these illegal aliens, whether terrestrial or non-terrestrial. Okay? For those that believe in extraterrestrials, and there's other life forms out there in the universe. And I do believe, and my personal belief, based on how big the universe is, how many suns and solar, planets and all that, solar, interstellar, places all inside the universe. I do believe there's other forms of life out there, but there's not a lot that has the technology to conduct interstellar travel. And I do believe the to be multi-dimensional, to basically be on a parallel dimension that we cannot see, or with our eyes or whatever. I do believe that God can give people, and this biblical too, by the way, I've talked about this before. God can give people the gift, the spiritual gift of seeing into parallel dimensions, or have the spiritual gift of seeing into multiple dimensions other than our own, or to include our own. That's just my belief. And there's a part in the Bible where God gives Elisha, the one that took the cloak of, or the mantle of Elijah, right, and had all the power that twofold that Elijah had. Basically, he prayed to God, Elisha prayed to God to give his servant the ability to see in that dimension, the heavenly dimension, to see the heavenly forces surrounding the forces of the king of Syria. Now that's in the Bible. So he was able to see all the chariots of God and all the armies of God, and there was more of us. I'll say this now, more of us than there are them. Now, in Iran, this is what I want to put out now. Iran basically just shut down the oldest Christian Protestant church in Iran. They just shut it down. They are arresting pastors and preachers, those that are out there sharing the word of God in Iran. They're taking them off the streets, and they're taking them in to basically incarcerate them or to torture them or to murder them. They declared, as far as my understanding, anyone that basically is trying to spread Christianity in Iran, they're going to take them and kill them. Now, I got that source from a person that I view a lot. I don't know the individual personally, but I'm pretty sure it sounds to me legit. So they deem Christians, those that believe in the covenant, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not false witness, honor thy mother and father, thou shalt not covet, thou shalt love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength. Those people that don't believe in murder, they're taking those people off the streets and murdering them, or taking them, going to their dwelling and going right to their dwelling, or when they're in that church, they shut that church down. Now, I don't believe that's just a statement made by somebody that's got like over 1 million followers. This channel could add over 1 million followers if they didn't they didn't basically shadow ban. They still shadow banning this channel and basically deplatforming. But anyways, this channel is for our community of law-abiding, God-fearing, respecting people. Mainly, that's our community I try to focus on, but we welcome other people as well, as long as you're respectful and that kind of thing in the chat. Okay, so I wasn't brought up in a religious family, and I'm not saying that because I'm proud of it either way. But one thing I'm very, very grateful for, around every Christmas time or that time of the year, or Passover, or however you believe it, Hanukkah, that kind of thing. My parents had us watch the Ten Commandments movie. And as a child, I got to view that as a child, and it left a very lasting impact on who I ended up becoming as a citizen. So whatever people believe, whatever they want to, that's your right. But me personally, I like to see more people join the Christian community and get their own Bible, get their own Strong's Concordance, exhaustive concordance of the Bible, get you a Bible dictionary, get you I have all those things. I had somebody tell me, why don't you get this? Why don't you get that? I don't sit there and brag about myself because I'm not the most knowledgeable person when it comes to scriptures, but I did quite a bit of research, so I'll just leave it at that. Anyways, now where's the United Nations in all this? Where's the United Nations when Iran basically killed and murdered tens of thousands? We're believing it might be 30, 40, or 50,000 of their own people murdered, just because. We're not even talking about them going out there because they wasn't even armed. They wasn't armed at all. They just went out to protest. I mean, peaceful protest, to protest against the current regime. They took them off the street. They were basically shooting with sniper weapons off of roofs. They were shooting them. They set up sniper nests up on the roofs of these multi-story buildings, and they're just shooting people on the streets to cause terror terror on their own people. And they killed, we believe, maybe, even if it's only 20,000, even if it's only 10,000, even if it's only 5,000, even if it's only 1,000, even if it's only hundreds, that's too much. Even if it's one person that's murdered, that's too much. They're breaking their own law. In my opinion, why are they breaking their own law? Because they worship the man as God. He put out the orders, the unlawful orders, even the unlawful orders, the orders that were issued, commanded by God, what not to do. They actually implemented it. Killing innocent men, women, and children. In horrific ways. And the media is silent on it, right? And who they're trying to make the enemy. They're trying to make this administration the current enemy. Non-stop, 24/7. Their PSYOPs operation is still running full speed ahead with no deterrence. The only deterrence, mainly the main deterrence we have, is when President Trump goes out there and exposes it, or anybody else in this administration goes out there and exposes the psychological warfare campaign that they ran against us, for the people to understand what the truth is from just blatant lies. I mean, you have to have, all it takes is common sense and true logic to understand and just look through these lies. Like, for example, the P-tape dossier. You notice they didn't start talking, they stopped talking about that. Because it was so ridiculous, nobody believed it. See, they had to have a source inside that saw this stuff happening inside Moscow, right? And they brought up the bed that Barack Obama and Michelle Obama slept in Moscow when they're sleeping with the enemy. Remember, July 7th of 2009, 3 days after Independence Day, Barack Obama and his intel chief, James Jones, flew to Moscow and traveled to Novogorodiova to meet with Vladimir Putin, in my opinion, to put together the Uranium 1 deal. Uranium 1 deal. Did I say Iranian? Uranium 1 deal. This is true information. We have the video. He met with Vladimir Putin because Vladimir Putin he's basically still the intel chief at that time, though, July 7th of 2009, Vladimir Putin was not the president of Russia. He was the prime minister. Proper protocol for the president of the United States is to meet with the president of Russia at the time, who was Dmitry Medvedev. So a lot of people in this community have heard me talk about this before, but for people that just came into this channel for the first time, you're hearing this for the first time, and you didn't even know. That's when they set up, in my opinion, using Russia as the middleman to transport uranium, using Russia to basically transport uranium to Iran, in my opinion, to help create an Iranian nuclear weapons program, to help Iran to enrich uranium on their own terms and their secret underground facilities. So now I'm gonna get into this a little bit, talking about weapons of mass destruction. That term they used, that it was all a lie. Saddam Hussein didn't have weapons of mass destruction. Well, guess what? The what do you call it? What is it? The nuclear energy agency, whatever. They licensed Iraq's ability to create nuclear power plants in their country. Now, what do you always have when you have a nuclear power plants? You have nuclear waste, right? Nuclear waste. They were basically collecting nuclear waste. So if you go out there, the Department of Nuclear Energy, I believe that's what it's called. They actually, I think it was during the Reagan administration, they actually licensed the nuclear power plants to basically be built in Iraq. Okay, so this looks like a similar type thing, but they transitioned from Iraq to Iran, in my opinion. Okay, so remember the Iraqi situation report. Remember at the date timestamp, if you look at the clock of that C-SPAN video on February 17th of 1998, I believe it was. That was 2 years after Independence Day. Remember where they slowed down and they stopped the time, the countdown of the attack of, remember, they struck the Pentagon, and we believe there was other plane that might have had a bomb in it or whatever, or they had another plane that they said was either going to strike the White House or the Capitol building. Remember that, okay? Remember the Weather Underground. Remember the symbol, the rainbow and the lightning. Remember who the guy was, that the director of Independence Day, 1996. Remember that Iraqi situation report when President Clinton said at 9/11, you have to look at the last three numbers of that clock, 9/11. So up top it says 1 on top of the screen. You'll see a 1. So it's got February 17th, 1998, and there's a few spaces on the video, the C-SPAN video. It says number 1. And then it goes to 9/11. What was number 1? 2001. And I do believe they were planning, basically, some people believe there's a possibility that was a planning stage and putting together the money, the black budget, and the, what was it, the $1.4 trillion that came in missing receipts as far as the Pentagon that Donald Rumsfeld revealed, or is it $2.3 trillion that was missing from the budget? And he exposed that on September 10th of 2001. This is not RH going out there making those public official statements. These are individuals at top level positions of our government. Donald Rumsfeld at the time was the Secretary of Defense. They call it the Secretary of War now. Remember that. Okay, so at that 1, meaning 2001, from 98 to 1, that's when it went to the new century, right? The 20th century. The first year of the 20th century on 9/11. That's when President Clinton and his administration was pursuing towards getting the American people ready as well. That's what he said in that speech. And you can see the time step. The time stop. Okay? So what did Clinton say in that speech? He's speaking to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He said, I know the men and women in uniform, when called upon, are ready. The American people are ready as well. The American people need to be ready as well. In my opinion, they needed everybody ready after September 11th, 2001, where in that movie Independence Day, that's when the aliens was going to strike DC and destroy the leadership. So people can just scoff at that, whatever, but I believe that 100%. So what was President Clinton calling us to be ready for? He wasn't calling us to be ready for Afghanistan, because guess what? Since 1992, we already had the Northern Alliance, which we took part in. The Northern Alliance. In where? Afghanistan. Remember, when did they disband the Northern Alliance? We are already fighting a war to bring Osama bin Laden to justice, to Taliban and Al-Qaeda leaders. We were already conducting a military operation in Afghanistan. This is the God's to honest truth. Now, so on December 26th, Fox News put out a report. Fox News report on December 26th of 2001. It states bin Laden already dead on the title of that Fox News report. Now, on January 13th of 2015, Fox News updated that report and said bin Laden already dead. So Bill Clinton already knew that we had troops in Afghanistan trying to take out Osama bin Laden, or that boogeyman, right? Or one of his doubles, or whatever. Or USA Ma bin Laden. You notice how they have different names for, did we have a double or person in intelligence community, covert operative, and we identified that covert operative as Usama bin Laden. Okay, the title of the Fox News report, again, posted and put out for the public to see. Everybody's on vacation, whatever. Bin Laden already dead. So if bin Laden was still at large before right after 9/11, why did we call off the Northern Alliance? Why did we disband the Northern Alliance? Remember the Iraqi situation report? They already prepped the military. The military was already ready to go back into war against Iraq. Because after the attacks on the presidential palaces during Operation, what do you call that? The first one, Desert Storm, right? There's Operation Desert Shield and there's Operation Desert Storm. During Desert Storm, we basically took out the presidential palaces, killed a lot of Saddam Hussein's loved ones, right? So that was 2000. That was 1991. January 17th, the main attack, Desert Storm, occurred on January 17th of 1991. So and that wasn't to take out Osama bin Laden, that was to take out Saddam Hussein, right? That regime. To decapitate that regime and take out the Iraqi Revolutionary Guard troops, the threat, right? We called off that threat, and in 1992, we established the Northern Alliance to take out Osama bin Laden. So we have to think about this now. We have to use the timeline. Think about all this. I don't want to have to repeat it again, but I want to basically highlight the most important things. Now, in my opinion, they've already purged any of this damning information which the intel community may or may not have, right? And I'll mention another thing. So Saddam Hussein and Iraq at the time in 1991 during Desert Storm, they already had nuclear energy power plants. So they are already collecting what they call nuclear waste, which you can basically put together and make a dirty bomb. So there's another hypothesis, or I would say a theory, that the real threat that the world or the West believed was in Iraq and basically possibly nearly under control of Saddam Hussein was the coffin of Gilgamesh. A lot of people believe Gilgamesh had basically advanced type weapons or some type of information that basically where people could live thousands of years, right? So a lot of people believe that Nimrod actually became Gilgamesh, and he had basically a very powerful weapon, if you will, kind of like what the mothership may have had or whatever. And they believe that there was a special operation to go into the Iraqi museum in Baghdad to basically get some cuneiform tablets or whatever that might have instructions of where Gilgamesh's sarcophagus was and what may or may not have been in that sarcophagus. So a lot of people believe there was a covert operation to get what could be a weapon of mass destruction. Now that's just a theory, okay? And people can say that's ridiculous. If you want, that's fine. You have a right to your opinion. So, wow. So, okay. What did President Trump talk about last night? What did President Trump talk about in that speech last night before the best firework display ever in the world? I think that broke Philippines record. It was over 800,000 fireworks was fired last night between, I think it was after 11 o'clock within that time frame. When they started the fireworks show right after Trump's speech, right, they broke the world record in over 8,000 fireworks fired off. Wow, that's pretty cool. And it was beautiful in my opinion. And I was sitting there thinking, man, if I only had all that money that just for the fireworks alone, I would basically be a multimillionaire. But I was just thinking about that, as all that money was blowing up in the skies all around me in my neighborhood and in Washington D.C. and everywhere else. I guess there was a lot of other good shows. Macy's put on, I think it was Macy's put on a huge fireworks show, I think in New York. Really great show. But okay, so President Trump talked about, remember how he's talking about our forefathers? I guess you can say forefathers and foremothers too, right? Remember how they're talking about how our country formed and our founders and all that stuff? Remember the pioneers that basically the pioneers that basically tamed the wild frontier, the wilderness, how they tamed the wilderness. Now listen to this real quick. This is in my opinion. I didn't get a place card holder video of what Trump said, but if you go to that one point, listen to him as far as he tamed the wilderness, as far as, and he related it to taming the wild frontier, right? He talked about present day, the wilderness. Now, remember in the Bibles what they talk about? Our Bible, they talk about as far as the wilderness. Remember the 40 days of temptation in the wilderness? What is also the wilderness described as? The wilderness described as the desert, right? What's going on in the deserts? What's going on in the region? Hasn't the Abraham Accords tamed the wilderness? Tamed the desert oil-bearing, producing countries? Isn't that what the Abraham Accord has done? Have we looked at it in those terms? Okay, I'm going to start getting into protective custody real quick, but basically take a moment to think about it. Think about the wars that have gone on in the desert, the OPEC nations, in the regional area of the OPEC nations. Think about all the fighting and blood spread for basically that crude oil, taking over the monopoly of that in OPEC and dictating to the rest of the world what the price of that oil is, and making them lose their sovereignty, economic sovereignty. I'll use the UK as an example. The Prime Minister of the UK basically refused to drill in the North Sea anymore, but Norway basically opened up new wells to drill, and they basically became economically sovereign, a sovereign economic country, which doesn't have to rely anymore on OPEC oil. Now, I'm not calling everybody in OPEC, part of this. There's a lot of good allies we have, that are OPEC nations. But you think about it. They put up a lot of windmills, and only 2% of their energy needs, something like only 2%, is basically captured through windmills. And you think about most people know that, and it gets kind of boring because you've heard this probably 1,000 times already before, maybe less or maybe more. So, but think about it. So we're still having to fight over our economic sovereignty and the people that have benefited the most. Now, think about this. I even heard Bill Clinton talk about this. He basically said only way for our economy to grow is to increase our population. And then, those individuals, they go into how the number of American citizens, the birth rate has greatly lowered, which can't be sustained. So based on a monetary benefit and where our interest goes on that national debt of over, I think it's $38 trillion, where that national debt goes to, the interest payments alone of the 38 trillion. So if they have no industry, the people behind it, remember 1776, what happened? What happened in 1776? I'm not lecturing people. There's a lot of people that know a lot more than I. But basically, I wanted to talk about, real quick again, about the ceremonial flag. The ceremonial flag. The ceremonial, now, just put aside maritime law, okay? Maritime law and who the sovereign was. He gave a speech in front of Congress. There was a standing ovation from the bar. Many of those people are lawyers. And from my understanding, they were never supposed to be in Congress. Those were supposed to be normal citizens, not part or tied to the bar of foreign persuasion, foreign banks or whatever. Okay? Now you think about it. The governors on that board, the president of the United States can't even fire. He can't even fire them. So does that mean does that show confidence that we have a sovereign economic economy? By no means do we have a sovereign economic economy to this day. How much of that $38 trillion in national debt is constitutional? How much of that approximately $38 trillion in national debt is unconstitutional? That's not what, see, that's what we're not supposed, that's what they're keeping from us. That's what they're keeping from us. And in that speech, he explained his sovereign. He was the sovereign. He was talking to us like we were subjects under his crown. And you have to pick out some of those key words to basically put it together and put the rest of it together. That's why all this pushback is going on. Now, we already know about the surveillance state. We already know about it. And why Brennan is out there talking about preserve the records. Preserve what records? You see, the gaslighting, that's part of the part of the what do you call it? Psychological warfare operation. Accuse others of what they're doing themselves. What did they plant? Remember, they plant the documents. Remember the dossier? Remember the P-tape dossier? Remember all that Russia stuff? He wants you to go see the documents. Preserve those documents that they created. Remember, the President of the United States took away John Brennan's security clearance. And they're saying you can't even fire people in the intelligence branch. Think about that. Now, President Trump took away John Brennan's security clearance. What did, after they got back in power again, the Biden third term administration, what did they say? Well, they made administrative errors. The White House made administrative errors. So basically, they're saying while he's dancing back and forth from London and DC or in other facilities, which he's supposed to be banned from. So after he was banned from, he lost his security clearance. They found a way to keep his security clearance intact and use him as part of the echelon surveillance state. So that can continue. That continue on. Remember the wrap-up smears, how it's all connected. Remember Nancy Pelosi talking about the wrap-up smears? Basically, they plant false information, lies, libel, slander. They don't care. To their favorite news agency, whatever, or members of the FBI or the intelligence or DHS or whatever. They plant the seeds of falsehoods against their political opponents and those that are out there actually exposing the truth. Like I hope that y'all believe that's what I'm here to do. You think about it. This is a free live stream. All the hours of basically research going all the way back to November of 2008, and maybe a little bit before, all this study. Now, remember, John Brennan was the director, the president of the Analysis Corporation in 2008. John Brennan was overall responsible for the security of the U.S. State Department. Remember, they hacked into the U.S. State Department or send an agent into the U.S. State Department, Tory Burgess, maybe? I don't know. They sent an operative, Brennan sent an operative into the U.S. State Department to, in our opinion, purge Barack Hussein Obama's records that would have made him ineligible or lose credibility to become the next president of the United States. So you notice, if it wasn't for the intel community and for the Analysis Corporation, in my opinion, remember, that's before during that happened, that breach of the U.S. State Department, John Brennan was a senior campaign advisor for Barack Hussein Obama's presidential campaign. Remember that. That's material. So he was working with the Analysis Corporation. The Analysis Corporation, as the president and director of the Analysis Corporation, they were contractors working for the U.S. State Department, the FBI, and intelligence community to plant certain things, right? Or take away certain things. That was their job. Some of it was under presidential directives. A presidential directive. You know, you have to read the CIA's mission statement, and they contract. And what else did the Analysis Corporation, what was their official duties also as a contractor for the U.S. government or the FBI, CIA, or the intelligence community? They conducted watch list surveillance. There you go. Remember the watch list? They're putting everybody under the watch list after what happened in, remember, COV2, C, lowercase o, I think it's uppercase V, -2. Remember? Remember how they started cracking down on channels, deplatforming us? Remember that? The salt of the earth people going out there attacking them, listening in their personal conversations. Well, I'm not talking about criminals now. There's a criminal out there, pretending to be one of us, and they're breaking the law. Hey, you deserve what you get. If it's the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, that you committed crimes and you're committing crimes. Like those that broke out windows on J6 and that kind of thing and physically assaulted law enforcement. We don't support those people. Now, we can understand, how they're shooting rubber bullets and throwing out dangerous flashbang grenades, causing possible concussions. We understand the unnecessary. But remember, they turned down the National Guard 10,000 troop offer to secure that Capitol because it was the Capitol Hill setup. And I won't get into that. I know for a fact that's what they did because I watched the videos that they blocked from American people seeing. Those videos need to be declassified and put out in the public. And don't get a guy like Tucker Carlson to have review of 40,000 hours of live surveillance camera video and basically just give them what you want to give them. Right? That investigation hasn't been thoroughly conducted. There's still a lot of cover-ups to this day. Remember, President Trump wanted it to go through the proper process of the certification. He wanted the evidence of fraud exposed when the objectors came forth to read the evidence into public record. That's exactly when the breach occurred. Exactly when the breach occurred, when the objectors started to put out the information. Who was the first objector? Dr. Gosar of Arizona. Remember, it went in alphabetical order. You can go back and watch the joint session, how he's being interrupted to throw him off track, right? And right after that, he started that. That's when they opened up the double steel doors. They opened up the double steel doors in the Capitol, people inside, what do you call it, confidential human sources, in my opinion, or plainclothes law enforcement working for the three-letter agency or C's plural, DHS, whatever, right? Remember when they raided Mar-a-Lago? Remember they told them to wear plainclothes like polo shirts and conceal their weapons, and they were authorized to use of deadly force? Well, those are the same tactics that they used on J6. Almost the exact same tactics, because it was the same people behind it. Remember, General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said that he would not, that the other Joint Chiefs had to report to him whenever President Trump basically put boots on the ground in our country, which included his offer of 10,000 National Guard troops, boots on the ground on J6. So that's what slowed down the National Guard getting to the Capitol building to basically secure the Capitol building, right after the breach. They set the breach up. And in my opinion, that was plan A. If they actually utilized President Trump's offer of 10,000 National Guard troops to secure the Capitol, then they would have had to go to plan B to basically evacuate out the Capitol, to block the objectors from reading the election fraud evidence into record. Believe me, there's multiple facts that back this up. This is not just throwing something out against the wall and hoping it sticks. These are the facts. And a lot of people still have not received the facts because of the psychological warfare operation that is still ongoing in our country. And they still have, to this day, we do not have a free press. We do not, or all these facts would have already been exposed. If we had a legitimate, honest, free press, those facts would have already been exposed. And we would have been, in my opinion, a lot better place than we are even now. Even with all the positive stuff this current administration is involved in, there's still a lot of dangers involved, especially because these people are not going to lay down and give up, because they know if they can take over, overthrow basically like they've done before, and we got facts to prove it. If they take over total control of the government, they're going to go after people, good, honest people again. They're going to go after people with a vengeance. So, anyways, what was Plan B? If they did get the 10,000 National Guard troops or more to secure the Capitol, work directly with the Capitol Police Chief, Stephen Sund, I believe his name. Remember, the commander of the National Guard that is trained in riot control would have reported directly to Stephen Sund, and they would disperse the forces around the Capitol building to ensure that process was done properly. They didn't want the election fraud evidence to be exposed. To this day, they have blocked the election fraud evidence from being exposed. So if they did have the 10,000 National Guard troops and the Capitol was adequately secured based on the intel that Pelosi, Marion Bowser, the mayor of I call it Moscow, but it's the mayor of DC, Nancy Pelosi, and I believe it was Mitch McConnell. I think he was the other guy. If they basically called for the National Guard based on the president's offer, based on the intel that they all had, they knew the dangers of 9/11, and they knew they were inadequately manned. So they allowed the breach to occur, to shut down the objectors. Now, what would they have done if President Trump and Nancy Pelosi basically, or Marion Bowser, called for the National Guard troops to basically adequately secure the government buildings like the Capitol building on J6? Guess what? They had Plan B, in my opinion. What was Plan B? Plan B was to call in a bomb scare and evacuate out the Capitol building. And immediately again accuse President Trump involved in, covertly setting those bombs at the DNC headquarters building, right outside the DC headquarters building, and the Republican committee headquarters building in DC as well, to get the evacuation of the joint house, where it would obstruct the process of the objectors reading the election fraud evidence into record. I guarantee you, maybe only 1% of our nation's population, and even less than that in the entire world, that those that were viewing people from foreign countries viewing the process, you know, which includes the other eyes, right? So they would have heard more of the election fraud evidence. So what would that election fraud evidence, if they did get the 10,000 National Guard troops, it would have compelled Mike Pence to basically conduct an objective official investigation into election fraud. Now, there was a thing they put before Congress. I forgot the Adams and something, whatever call it, petition to have that information read before the public, but I forgot what they called that again. But they just shut that down. So, so they were successful. And what was the purpose of basically evacuating out the Capitol building, whether it was a bomb scare or by opening up the doors and the inside of the Capitol and letting people just come in and creating the violent events that happened thereafter? Remember, they shot and murdered an unarmed Air Force veteran, Ashley Babbitt. So that was what President Trump was talking about, brave person. He was basically trying to get Mike Pence to do his job and to get people to go out there and protest against the election fraud peacefully, to have their voices heard. March down to the Capitol to peacefully to fight like hell to have your voices heard. So how are they going to basically convert or subvert the objectors from canceling their objectors? And the second objector of that day, I believe it was the senator of Georgia. I can't remember her name right now, but she changed her objection status. So what was how was they going to subvert all those congressional representatives when they were out for, what was it, like over a couple hours or something like that? They had them read the Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger's fraudulent election claims. They had them all read that, and they put that as part of their intel, and saying that President Trump was leading an insurrection, to falsely accuse Trump of an insurrection so that he can never, ever hold office again. And so they can block Mike Pence from ever basically conducting a voter fraud investigation, a bipartisan voter fraud investigation, to make sure that they can go through and certify the elections. Now, Kelly Loeffler was an objector of certifying the elections on J6. She was the next one up after Paul Gosar. Paul Gosar didn't even finish reading the information in the separate House chamber. Remember who was reading that information in the Senate chamber? That was before the evacuation of the Capitol. That was Ted Cruz. That was Ted Cruz. Now, what's sad about all this stuff is that they know this. And I don't believe Ted Cruz is that ignorant of what happened, what really happened. So if you go to voterga.com and listen to or read that, I think it's 18 pages of that investigation, it was proven that they had enough information that would promote Kelly Loeffler, a lot of that information wasn't exposed until after the fact. Also, what else did they do? What else did the deep state do? They blocked the president of ensuring there was not foreign interference in our elections. When was that ODNI report, the Director of National Intelligence report from Ratcliffe, due to the president? When was that due? It was due around the 18th of December, with plenty enough time before the certification process that took place on J6 2001, not 2001, 2021. Okay. Plenty of information and exposed the foreign interference. What did they do? They went in and manipulated the intel, like I think it was Tulsi Gabbard has already exposed, right? It was either Tulsi Gabbard exposed already or Kristi Noem. I can't remember which. I think it's Tulsi Gabbard. But yeah, that information would already been exposed, and it would basically constitutionally gone through the process properly like it should have. If that report got to the president before the 45 days was up, guess when the intel community, when I'm talking about intel community, remember now, we're talking about all five of them. We're talking about the Five Eyes, right? Intel community. They blocked that report from getting out before the 45 days based on that executive order 13848 regarding foreign interference in our elections. They blocked that report from going out. When did they release that manipulated report? Now, Tulsi Gabbard revealed the manipulated report before multiple times. Remember the records? The falsified records that Brennan is trying desperately to get to say, okay, don't destroy their false evidence that they planted, right? Like they planted a crime scene at Mar-a-Lago. All right. So the information's out there. People can continue to act like they're ignorant or whatever. I don't care. Remember, we got a rogue economy based on foreign interference in that as well, where the president of the United States, I don't even think that Congress can fire a governor in the Federal Reserve. We can't even do audits in the Federal Reserve. So there's a lot of power behind that. You think about it. In the Congress, the upper and lower house, there's only what 400, 500 people total, maybe? Well, I'm talking about the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. There's only about 400 or 500 individuals. Can you imagine what billions of dollars could buy? Billions of dollars can buy elections. Foreign interfere in elections. Plant certain information like the P-tape. Get intelligence involved like Christopher Steele and others. Even Russian citizens. Igor Danchenko, right? Got to have somebody on the inside to verify it. Who do you think they work? Who do you think the Biden administration worked with in 2020? You don't think Echelon wasn't involved in that? I do believe they are highly involved. So there's a lot of people walking around as free men and women on our streets. And there's actually a lot of murderers that were released. There's thousands of murderers that were released on our streets. Those are proxies. Those are proxies, covert proxies, activated, in my opinion, to keep their secrets a secret, because it would take down the whole system, their system, which is antithetical to the Declaration of Independence or to the U.S. Constitution. If you think about it, even the United Nations was involved. The NGOs were involved, trillions of dollars, right? To bring in the alien invasion force into our country. So, keywords and phrases, right? They've already put out the information. It's all we need is people to put it together that are on the inside. Take this information, which I provide for everyone for free. Make it your own information. Now, I'm not exactly living the life of the rich and famous here in Central Florida. I'm not whining. I'm blessed. I'm blessed with what I have. I'm very grateful for what I have. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. Wow, when I used to change this avatar, it would change out, and I'm just kind of wondering why it's not changing out. It's ridiculous. Okay. Wow, it just changed out. Okay, so I'm going to change out. Now, this has a little bit, this is a theory of mine. You see, if you are a U.S. passport holder, I'd like you to turn U.S. passport to the inside back cover and the page before the inside back cover. I want you to look at this satellite. I want you to look at the moon. I want you to look at the earth. Remember how in Independence Day, 9/11, how they used the satellites? Now, if you read the wordage, now I'm not saying anybody's guilty of, putting information in the passport that could be damning or would expose high level secrets. This is what they put on the inside cover of our passport. Now, on the opposite page of the inside back cover, where you see that satellite, you see the moon, you see the earth, it says this is I think it says highly sensitive electronic device. So our passports are a highly sensitive electronic device. So remember, they broke the code. They broke the code of our satellites. And they used the satellite systems to basically conduct the alien invasion. Okay. Now, this is where it's important to go back and review Snowden's. He released that information. Yes, I believe he should have been held accountable. He needs to be held accountable. because there's no telling how many people died based on the information that he released. At least time served. I'll put him on probation, you know, put him on the watch list, let him live out the rest of his life. But since he joined Russia, I don't think they're going to allow him to come back. Think about that. You know, what secrets are they hiding over there that they knew about? Now, if he fled to Russia, what secrets did he give up in that deal to keep him safe? And it's probably his family too. I don't know. But he's the one that exposed Echelon. He woke a lot of us up. And it goes back to that watch list, surveillance watch list. And it goes back to technology that we have that can save the navigators, you know, pilots and that kind of thing, Wizzos and that kind of thing. Highly sensitive, right? So they got their code. I don't know if y'all remember the theory about Da Vinci, or I think it's the Da Vinci satellites. Um, remember a lot of that stuff was talked about in you know, hindsight, perfect vision. What's perfect vision? I guess 2020, right? All right. So that's y'all's dose of conspiracy theories today. Is there anything that y'all want me to basically get more technical, or more, you want a little bit more information, at least find the source? I think I'm pretty much given all sources. But remember, refutation of Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger's false election claims. Okay. Voter GA. There's a PDF 18 pages long. So remember, they have to take over the government to get rid of Trump. So Trump could, they couldn't have a real investigation into voter fraud, including electronically, right? Through the internet, through satellites, through Ethernet cards, that kind of thing. Okay. So they're rolling with this again. And it looks like, since they were never held accountable before, and they think they can't be caught, and all the evidence will be destroyed, so they can't be found out, or they're just playing a bunch of false evidence on other people, honest, law-abiding American citizens, and make it look like they're on the crazy train, right? The crazy train. Okay, so there's 7 people still viewing on YouTube. A lot, a lot less than we used to have. Is there anything that y'all want me to expound on? Clarify a little bit better? Put it in the comments section. I appreciate it. Before I shut down the live stream. Okay, so again, remember in the movie Independence Day, the first one, 1996, right? Five years before 2001. Remember the Iraqi situation report. Remember Bill Clinton talking about Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction, basically trying to get people ready as well. They were already ready in Afghanistan since 1992. Many of us believe that's the reason why they disbanded the Northern Alliance on end of December of 2001 because bin Laden was already killed. We do believe Operation Neptune Spear took out a double of Osama bin Laden, and it wasn't the real Osama bin Laden. Remember, those type of operations are highly compartmentalized. There's people that are working directly with small teams and those operations that are working directly together, and some of them are not read into the entire operation. So remember, the Northern Alliance disbanded in late December of 2001, only like a month and a half after 9/11. And Fox News put out the report on December 26th of 2001 that bin Laden was already dead. Now, if you go into, I believe it was the first paragraph of that report, Fox News report, bin Laden already dead, published on December 26th of 2001. Read the first paragraph and understand who Osama bin Laden was. So, Osama bin Laden and doubles. So, Operation Neptune Spear was held on what I think it was May 1st or May 2nd of 2011. So if bin Laden was already killed again, right, on Operation Neptune Spear, why did Fox News update the same article with no changes? Bin Laden already dead. They updated that article, which initially came out on December 26th of 2001, after Operation Neptune Spear occurred. They put it out again on January 13th of 2015. What was about ready to happen in 2015? Okay, let me go back to this other avatar photograph. Okay, now this is where they stop. Now, the director, I forgot his name. Y'all can look it up yourself. This isn't something I'm just making up. These are things that catch my eye and should catch other people that were in the military or in our high levels of government, where they should take note of. Just like the Iraqi situation report, date timestamp, the one for 2001 at the top of the picture of the video, make sure you go full page, right? See that whole video page and get down where Bill Clinton says, I know the men and women in uniform are ready when called upon. The American people have to be called upon. The American people have to be ready as well. I know that the men and women in uniform are ready if called upon. The American people have to be ready as well. Well, what's significant about that date timestamp? When he says the American people have to be ready as well, That's 9/11 on the date timestamp of that video. And to be more specific, the 1 means September 11th, 9/11, 2001. Now, this is the movie again of 9/11 when it was paused. That's when the aliens were going to attack either terrestrial aliens or non-terrestrial aliens. Okay? Maybe both. Maybe one had direct energy technology and took down the towers with direct energy. Maybe they used the technology of basically uninterrupted pilot guidance. Uninterrupted autopilot. Uninterrupted autopilot. And you saw how they came back out there and really fought against that information. They already had the technology. Uninterrupted autopilot. They already had, either they were remotely piloting those aircraft to fly into the towers and into the side of the Pentagon. I do believe that's how those steel frame buildings came down, through direct energy or explosive demolitions. And this all makes a lot more sense, especially when it comes to Building 7 and how the Pentagon was struck with that type of precision from inexperienced pilots that might have just got there, just used the pilot simulator training to conduct those maneuvers. Okay. I'm sure people can add to this information. Be welcome to put the information in the comment section, because if you put information in the YouTube comment section, that information saves after the live stream is after it ends. Okay. There's a lot of serious questions still unanswered that normal people have. Good, salt of the earth, honest citizens have, that want to restore not only the geographical sovereignty of our country, but also our economic sovereignty as well. If we have foreign entities that control the Federal Reserve banks, the Federal Reserve notes, control the printing of our currency, and we cannot even do an audit of where they're spending the money, we don't have sovereignty, period. We don't have either economic sovereignty or geographical sovereignty, because guess what? You have to have the funding to basically provide the national security to keep stuff like this from happening again. To keep from people just on the take, and that's all they are. The love of money is the root of all evil. Remember that. I'll never forget it. The love of money, based on money, these people have been bought out. And think about it, the money we're talking about. If Trump, remember all the money that was at stake for all these foreign countries with these unfair trade deals, and knowing what Trump was going to do when he got back in office as far as the tariffs go. There's people there are traders that are deeply embedded into our government that need to be exposed and rooted out and held accountable. Now, I do believe that there's enough information already out there, but they're going to keep it secret or they've already destroyed it. So remember, just use the raid on Mar-a-Lago as one of the examples. The Clinton emails. Okay, so now let's go to protective custody real quick. I haven't clarified what I was talking about. There's a lot of people that are in our government or were in our government. They are part of the branches of government, whether it's the executive branch, military, intelligence, FBI, Department of Homeland Security. There's people in the know that have basically uncovered information that's highly dangerous to these criminal actors working against and working for foreign countries to basically enrich themselves. Now, there's a lot of people. Not a whole lot of people, but a lot of people have actually faked their deaths, right? A lot of people, there's in the 21st century, the technological capability to wear masks and things that, surgery, that kind of thing. AI, advanced AI type, there could be people out there that we believe is still alive that aren't alive, or they're under protective custody, if you will, by the white hats for the right time. For example, I'm not going to say President Kennedy, but they used the same MO they used on Kennedy. They used the same MO on President Trump when it comes to Butler, and setting the conditions just like they did Kennedy to basically take out the President of the United States. These people are not done. Believe me, their lives are at stake as far as them basically being subjected to going to prison for the rest of their life, or even worse when it comes to capital crimes that they have been involved in. Now, I want to basically cover something real quick again. Protective custody. Loretta Fuddy, remember her? She disappeared, right? From what I understand, there was a federal marshal in that plane that crashed right off the coast of Hawaii. Now, there's some theories I have about that, but I don't want to elaborate on that much. There could have been a naval operation, and she was taken to safety, and she's under protective custody right now, for example. Okay, another example that could be an individual under protective custody that didn't die. Maybe the accident was staged to look like an accident. JFK Jr. And I do believe that JFK Jr. was under protective custody, and he was putting out comms. Okay, one of those comms that anybody can look up, and believe me, it's the truth. JFK Jr., John F. Kennedy Jr., John, as a lot of people lovingly say. He was putting out messages through George magazine, right? He's putting out messages for people to understand who was involved in murdering his father. And they're still, in my opinion, still blocking that evidence of who killed President John F. Kennedy. And I do believe that they put him under protective custody and they were conducting surveillance. And somebody was running for a certain seat in New York, and there's rumors, at least rumors from what I know, that John was running for that Senate seat as well, to get the experience to possibly move up into politics and to possibly being elected as president one day. So, what were the columns in the George magazine? Everybody, what's great about this show is everybody, I provide the source references. You can go look up those source references and make your own opinion about all these crimes and all these criminals and all these people that were honest people that they had, that were talking too much, that they had to get rid of. That's real. That's real. Very real. So what was the main column? In case we didn't know who George was. Now, based on the material that has been released so far, what they released what they want us to see. They're not going to release anything that exposes anything that possibly might be using the same old operations that they used on President John F. Kennedy, that they're using on President Trump. See, because that information might be tied in together. That's the reason why they're fighting. They're almost begging President Trump not to release all that information. So, what was that other piece? And in my opinion, this piece of information on that JFK Jr. put out, he got Cindy Crawford to dress as George Washington to be on the front cover of the George magazine. Now there's multiple reasons why they had Cindy Crawford cross-dress as a man, but I'm going to give you two of them. Remember the rumors about Herbert Hoover? Okay. Now also remember that in case you didn't know which George family to research, George Walker Bush, or George Jr., George Bush Jr., his TFR, official TFR, is Crawford Ranch. It's either just outside of Dallas, Texas, or inside Dallas, Texas. Crawford Ranch. Do you think it's just a coincidence that John put Cindy Crawford on the front page of the George magazine, front cover, dressed as George W? Well, that leads you to understand who may have helped with the cover-up. Now, come on, spelled exactly the same way. The Secret Service TFR that they protected George W. So you know it's leading you to the Herbert Walker, that George Bush, right? That intel community. There's a lot of breadcrumbs that JFK Jr. put out there. And could that be the reason that they took him, or he and Carolyn Bessette? Remember, nobody saw the remains of JFK Jr. That was a closed funeral. And closed funeral, and his body was cremated. What happens when you cremate a body? and you spread the ashes at sea, right? I don't think when you cremate a body that you can actually retrieve the DNA anymore. Look what they did to Crooks. Crooks. So I looked at the recovery attempts of the crash site and a lot of questions I have. Now, whether he was under protected custody, he was just tired of people suppressing the truth about what happened to his dad that we all saw. Now, think about this. The day before John F. Kennedy got to Dallas, where they set him up and they staged the assassination. They staged the assassination, or they set the conditions of the assassination, which was same that they set on President Reagan, where he was nearly murdered by John Hinckley Jr., and the same conditions that they set, in my opinion, with President Trump, former President Trump, while he was at Butler giving that rally speech. You notice what was absent there? The bulletproof glass, right? They set the conditions, line of sight conditions at Butler to murder President Trump. They pulled off his detail, and diverted them to the other Jill Biden event. They gave priority to Jill Biden for security, which was set in the conditions to have the President Trump never to be elected again. Also, the day before, November 22nd of 1963, they were putting out posters on the telephone poles, on the side of buildings, wanted posters of President John F. Kennedy wanted for treason. Why? Why was he wanted for treason? For colluding with Russia. Remember? What did the Intel branch do? The Five Eyes do? Help try to do? The same thing. They were going to try and convict President Trump for treason with colluding with Russia to interfere in elections. Remember that. Who was involved in that? Well, who was involved in running for the Senate seat in New York? Okay? So there's a lot of information out there. So put it all together. Start like, the investigation, posting like stickies up on the wall. Get your big wall and start putting all this stuff together. Add your own keywords and phrases in this attempted takeover again of the United States of America. So they had wanted posters of President Kennedy already out on the streets, on telephone poles, side of the buildings, that he was wanted for treason, for colluding with Russia. And what was President Kennedy doing? Which almost mirrors President Trump's attempt to ensure. He was trying to ensure that there wasn't a nuclear holocaust. Remember that. Remember again the 30-year anniversary of Nikita Khrushchev. Remember Nikita Khrushchev of the Union Socialist Soviet Republic, of the Soviet Union, communist, right? His 30-year anniversary was on September 11th, 2001. All of this is just a coincidence, right? The talks about from Curt Weldon, the Congressman Curt Weldon, that the Weather Underground, members of the Weather Underground traveled to Cuba and received explosive demolition training before the buildings were taken down. Okay? That's a rumor, right? Well, even better yet, if you go to the New York Times, an article planned to be released on September 11, 2001, planned in advance by, what's his name? I can't remember his name. Weather Underground guy, the leader of the Weather Underground. Somebody might want to put that in the chat real quick. The guy that helped groom Barry Obama in his home in Hyde Park. Okay, he planned with the New York Times to release an article of his socialist communist grievances and have it printed and published on the newspaper stands at dark 30 on September 11, 2001. What was the title of that article? Bill Ayers, by the way, the Weather Underground leader. Their symbol of the Weather Underground is the rainbow flag with the addition of a lightning strike. And who represents the lightning strike? Barak. In Hebrew, if you go to B-A-R-A-Q, Barak, how it's pronounced, that's a transliteration of Barak. If you go to the Hebrew concordance and look up B-A-R-A-Q, Barak stands for lightning. Now remember what our Messiah said about he saw Satan coming in lightning, right? He saw Satan coming down to the earth in lightning. Remember that. Going back to that manifesto, a lot of the foreign policy and domestic policy Barack Obama had was posted in that socialist communist manifesto that was planned to be released on September 11, 2001. And it posts in that article titled No Regrets for the Love of Explosives, Memoir of Sorts. In that article, they talked about the true means of how the trade towers were taken down and even Building 7 and why the Pentagon was attacked. Now remember, there's already precedent with the Weather Underground and these terrorist organizations, communist organizations. There's already precedent for them to be the number one suspects of that operation. Remember, because the Weather Underground was responsible for killing police officers. Remember, defunding the police. Remember all those people out there? Those are the communists. A lot of them, they brought in during their invasion because they're from socialist, predominantly socialist and communist countries. They're here to overthrow our country. So, no regrets for the love of explosives. No regrets for the love of explosives. How many people, how many first responders that basically said there were secondary explosions that were going off in the towers? Secondary explosions. You know, even the parts of the plane that crashed into the side of the Pentagon, they're still keeping those secret or they destroyed them all. So, and what really woke me up, I believe the official story, but when you look at Building 7 coming down, I don't care if you got Ronaldo Rivera, whatever his name, out there on the scene, and you saw a couple of those columns, pillars, whatever they were damaged. You know, those they could have set explosive demolitions on those to make it look like the debris went. What was that? I think it was 111 yards. The Building 7 from the nearest trade tower was 111 yards. That's what, like 111 is like 300 yard or 300 feet, like 333 feet, whatever. Yeah, there are secrets, a lot of secrets they're hiding from us. So they protect their own, right? And these people have killed, they've murdered God knows how many. And I do believe they're actually working with the IRGC to put out this propaganda, and that's what's emboldening the remaining leaders of the IRGC and the Iranian Republican, what do you call it? Whatever the main government's called. They're pretty much the IRGC, the Islamic Republic of Iran. That's it. So I do believe there's people, and you might even go to Intel. You notice how certain NATO countries will not even help us, even when it's in their own best interest of lowering the price of energy. It starts to make sense, doesn't it? Remember, we're talking about the eyes out there. There's not just one. There's not just the main one. There's four others. And remember the term sovereign. Remember the term sovereign in his speech. And remember this latest thing, birthright citizenship of John Roberts. He's making us out to be that a sovereign, a foreign sovereign, is basically saying you're going to have aliens from these countries coming into your country. We're all working, they're working together. Remember what they've done to their own country. Remember how they're taking all this money from, they call it environmental restoration. Some of these countries in NATO are charging their citizens like between $2 to $5 a gallon, an equivalent to a U.S. gallon, in taxes to pay for the global New World Order government and the global New World Order. And President Trump has exposed against the dollar. Yeah. Well, yeah, that'd be a whole nother conversation, but I do believe the BRICS was to basically allow them sovereign. Oh, never mind the BRICS. You're right. You're right, Ken. Never mind. I was thinking about, what do you call that British currency? The sovereign remember Johnson, Prime Minister Boris Johnson supported. Remember that currency? No. And so much money is involved. That's the reason why all these countries' leaders are basically, they got their daggers. They welcome Trump. They shake hands, but they vehemently hate President Trump. So, anyways, yeah, and John Roberts' opinion of the birthright citizenship, he went back to where it was colonial days and we were subject to the king sovereign, remember? And that's what the Declaration of Independence gave us. Now, one of his big spiels in before Congress was basically reminding people he's the sovereign, he's the kingdom. And far as what I understand, they claim that King Charles, whether it's true or not, I don't know. I'm not accusing him of doing anything wrong. He did mention the 250th year anniversary, and he did to mention his sovereignty. Remember, he has sovereign over Canada, and they elected a governor over Canada, right, to lead the military. So that means King Charles is going to basically be, that governor's going to report to him if they ever use the Canadian military and against any type of campaign. Now, I don't think it's going to go as far as being part of a war against America so they can restore the British Empire to its former glory. I don't know. But remember, King Charles is the sovereign. His kingdom includes Canada, of course, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, right? And there's probably more. I just don't remember all of them. Basically, the other four eyes, definitely, right? Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. Now, you think about it, all of those countries, anyone that's a territory, any country that's a territory of the sovereign of King Charles, right, would be part of the front, whether it's a soft war or hard war. And if he declares the war, they're governors of those sovereign countries that's under, not, it's a sovereign, it's not a sovereign, it's a commonwealth of the crown, of the kingdom. So we have to remember that. And we have to remember echelon, what we're up against, and who's paying and where they're getting the funding from. The funding for the psychological warfare operation and disempowering the middle class in America. I'm going to talk about that real quick because that's one of the motives that they have. That's our own taxpayer dollars. Rigging elections, the machines, everything. That's all partially funded, in my opinion, by the sovereign. And Echelon exposed that. That's the reason why Edward Snowden had to flee to Russia, because they would have murdered him. And I do believe Vladimir Putin knows that as well. So you think about it. John Roberts went back to the common law, all the way back to the colonial days and before the British Kingdom. And he recited basically stuff that they employed against these subjects, the peasants, if you will. That's who he talked down to in that speech in front of Congress. He was talking down to us. He was talking down, if you didn't catch it, about our president. And then he reaffirmed the sovereign. John Roberts basically duplicated that, mirrored that in his decision for the birthright citizenship. So, whenever they need illegal surveillance or surveillance conducted on prominent figures, guess what? They outsource it with foreign partners or subjected or subverted officials or subverted countries. Remember the change of the attitude of the Prime Minister of Italy, for example? I won't go into the whole thing, but it's all laid out right in front of us. And this current administration has helped lay it out before us citizens. Okay, so they are going to enrich themselves even more if we stay under the same subject to the kingdom and the crown. And they even gaslight and go out there and have operations like No Kings. You know what they're doing? That's part of the psychological warfare operation. Oh, Trump's trying to be a king. Remember what he said before the United Nations? He said, I'm not the king of the world. I'm the king of, I'm the president. I'm not the president of the entire world. He didn't even say he was a king. He said, I'm not the president of the entire world. I'm the president of the United States. Because Donald Trump, this is not a monarchy. Okay? This is not a monarchy. What John Roberts recited to support the illegal, unconstitutional birthright citizenship of illegal aliens coming into our country and having their children born from hostile countries or whatever. I don't care if they're being paid for it. They need to root out this criminal corruption and basically hold them accountable. Now, if you're part of a broader criminal conspiracy to be part of the invasion that started in 2001, January 20th of 2001 to January 20th of not 2001, 2021 to 2025, if you're part of directing that invasion into our country, I'm going to tell you why the New World Order government is for the illegal immigrants to come into our country. I'll tell you why. And Bill Clinton revealed those beans in a public statement he made. But who's paid for that? The U.S. citizens are paying for that. It goes through that covert Federal Reserve banks, and they're funding the Five Eye illegal surveillance and putting innocent men, women, and children under watch list, including some people I really, 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 really know well. A person I was born with, I know really, really well, put us under watch list. See, this information right here has so much depth and so much facts, so many facts. If this was presented to the right people and they took it serious, first of all, they could have what happened in Butler would have, in my opinion, never happened. What happened at that golf course would have never happened. They would have adequately protected the president instead of, or the former president, or presidential candidate President Trump, where the possibility of that would have been blocked. They would not have gone against protocol, Secret Service protocol to protect. And they can use, well, President Trump ordered us not, we're not going to do that. You know, if you get fired, you have to demand the proper protection of the president because he's so important right now. He's the only one I know really in my lifetime that's really exposed the criminality and the evil that has been going on for all these years. So, um, I got where I can't see the chat for some reason because I got a symbol over it and I can't scroll down above it or below it. Yeah, the euro was the regional currency for the New World Order regional currency, right? So we know that as well. And I thought they're going to roll in the euro, not the euro, the Amero as well. But yeah, that took away their sovereignty. You know, you got bureaucrats basically telling you where they're going to spend the money from, right? But all that money to bring in that invasion, the American taxpayer funded it through the Federal Reserve Bank. That's the reason why you cannot audit the Federal Reserve Bank. That means we do not have geographical sovereignty or financial or our economic sovereignty in our country. Until that's corrected and rectified, we don't. And they're fighting feverishly. They're throwing everything. This lawfare is even worse before. And it's going to get even worse. Look at it. It's like they have unlimited funds, like Norm Eisen, for example. He's just one example of the lawfare. One lawfare, one criminal complaint after the other, frivolous criminal complaints after the other, tying up our judicial branch of government with bogus stuff, right? Well, Clarence Thomas' dissent on that birthright citizenship was straight factual for people that don't have a very big vocabulary, whatever. They don't have a vocabulary or they don't understand special words. What I suggest you do is read all of Clarence Thomas's dissent, official dissent of that ridiculous, unlawful, unconstitutional birthright citizenship opinion, which was 6-3. That's so ridiculous. No, how stupid can these people be? I guess they're part of the bar. That goes back all the way to the British Empire. So for those that say that we're not under the maritime law, I would like you to look at the flags behind President Trump during his speech on the 4th of July night. Look at the yellow fringe. So I've been trying to tell people, listen, the yellow fringe is a ceremonial flag that the military uses. Well, the U.S. Secret Service uses the same flag. In most cases, there's an honor guard that basically posts the flag. The flag's in place, right? The U.S. flag. And it's always posted properly with the military. So those are ceremonial flags, like the 4th of July ceremony and other ceremonies as well. That flag is also around the flags of they call them flag officers, commanders that have flag officer official authorization. If you see those flags flying on their car, where that general's in that car, like the beast, right? That flag has got the yellow fringe around it as well. Okay, so I like to bring that up. And I like to give a hat tip out to Derek Johnson because he's the only one, at least the only one that I've heard covered Article 4, Section 4 of our United States Constitution. He's the only one that in depth, in detail, talked about Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, which states, the United States shall guarantee to each state in this union a republican form of government and ensure against invasion and against domestic violence. That gives the president the entire justification, legal justification, to go out there and quell domestic violence and invasion and stop invasion and to undo their invasion into our country. So just because we don't fall into the monarchy or the commonwealth doesn't give you a right to basically set the conditions for the overthrow of our country. It doesn't give you the right to work with, aid and abet the enemies of the United States, especially while they're declaring war against the United States and not providing material support for the United States of America. We are the main source of intelligence abilities in the entire world as part of the Five Eyes. We're supposed to be partners. You're not supposed to be using the Federal Reserve to basically steal trillions of dollars of American citizens. You're not supposed to be trying to cause invasions to keep a communist socialist type or monarchy or to revert back to us being subjects. And that's what they did when they took away our middle class. That's what they did when they allowed that invasion to occur into our country. Approximately 20 million illegal citizens came into our country, mostly from communist and socialist countries, led countries that they agree with. So why did they support that? Well, I just talked about it earlier. Because that's the money they're getting to build the New World Order government. Where do you think the kingdom of Palestine is going to come from? A kingdom that never existed. Now, from my understanding, King Charles, and all this could be wrong. RH could be wrong about every single bit of it. And if I find out I'm wrong about just a smidgen of corruption, Barack Obama, just a smidgen, I'll go out there and make the necessary corrections. Just a smidgen. Because I'm pretty sure there's just a smidgen of mistakes that I've made since I started this channel. I've made a lot of corrections on this channel. I want somebody to go out there and basically dispute exactly everything I said as all of it being falsehoods. I wouldn't wish you good luck to that, but any mistake, I'm open even to constructive criticism. So now I think I covered everything to include. Hold on a second. Protective custody. So, would somebody ban a member from ever stepping a single little toe or foot back into Mar-a-Lago and expose a lot of that information? That would be considered, a person of very important person. And that would basically entail protective custody or protective law enforcement ability to surveil to ensure that no conspiracy can be carried out to set the conditions to try to take out the leader of the free world. That's the true free world. Okay. Now, the people that know exactly what I'm talking about, right? They know there's some individuals believe that Elvis Presley may have been taken into protected custody. They give him a brand new identification, everything, right? JFK Jr., possibility. I know somebody very close to me, you could say in the family, you could say that faked his or her death and wasn't found out till later. Successfully faked his death. If it wasn't for suspicious activity in another country adjacent to the United States, he or she might have gotten away with it. So sometimes in protected custody, if somebody's actually broken the law and has information, let's see. Well, this one's far out there. I think they're planting that in people's ear to get him to make certain statement or her certain statements. Well, I actually went to the moon twice with 3 other people. I went to the moon twice, 3 other people. Now, think about that. If somebody actually knew that, they took me to the moon 3 times. You hear some wild conspiracy theories. Oh, I'm part alien. I'm part alien. I tell you what, I've seen certain things in my lifetime that I said there had to be, at minimum, divine intervention for people to get through that unscathed. So, anyways, so Loretta Fuddy, that Abercrombie, the governor and friend of Barry Obama, did they basically set up a situation where they took her? Because remember, she was supposed to, as far as I understand, she's supposed to attend a court hearing about the piece of paper that they created with little smiley faces on it, right? Remember how long it took them to get that piece of paper for the public? Was it 3 years? Why till this day we still don't have the college records? Well, that's all under protected custody. Remember the first day Barack Hussein Obama, whatever his name is, was in office. It was January 20th of 2009 or January 21st, 2009. He put out a threat to George W. Bush, remember, who has the TFR of Crawford Ranch. Go look up the TFR. Crawford Ranch, Dallas, Texas. Crawford Ranch TFR. It's the same name, Crawford, as Cindy Crawford, that JFK Jr. had cross-dress on as George W. so we would know who was responsible for killing his dad. So is JFK Jr. under protected custody, and rightfully so? Well, the people that behind that didn't want this revealed, I'm pretty sure they were going to ensure. And remember, as senator, she was the Senate Armed Services Committee chairman. Think about that. Think about that before 9/11, right? I guess some of this information is going to basically awaken a lot of people if they actually listen to it in its full entirety. Remember, all those 30,000 yoga and wedding emails they destroyed? They destroyed with an. Remember Mueller and the 18 angry Democrats? Remember they destroyed their devices? They're all part of that criminal conspiracy, right? They protect each other. I guess they have a sworn allegiance to each other and not to our country, right? Not to our flag, not to our Constitution, not to their oath, if they even have one on record. Okay. So there's a lot of things for us to think about. We're 251 years old today. Still only 10 p.m. Okay, so that's all there is for tonight. Is there anything that anybody in chat wants me to go over that you think remember I talk about focusing on keywords and phrases, okay? Or times, date and time stamps. Those are very, very important. Especially 9/11. And I basically ask, it's a great movie, okay? So remember, that's little Spielberg. What's his name? Spielberg that created that movie, Disclosure. I don't know if it's Full Disclosure or Disclosure. I haven't heard a lot of people raving about that movie. So, when they put that deer in that bedroom and a cardinal flew in, I don't know what's up about that, but, I do believe Stargate. There was something I was going to talk about too, real quick, and I'll see if I remember it. Stargate, Independence Day, and there's a second part 2 of Independence Day. I forgot the name of it. Okay, I haven't watched that yet, but you can pick up a lot of stuff in these movies. A lot of stuff. Steven Spielberg, right? So this other guy that basically directed Independence Day, he directed Stargate, and there's other good movies. Now, Steven Spielberg produced or directed Close Encounters, and that was a really great movie. I'm not taking away from that movie either. But it seems that the German guy that flags the rainbow flag, he had a lot of inside information. That's what I believe. That's what I believe. So, okay, now go back and I remember what I was going to finish this up. Remember why the Federal Reserve, the monarchy or the kingdom, you have to think about the kingdom of Palestine that they're trying to push through. Think about that. They're saying that he's blood related to King David. Okay? Think about that. Remember, there was never ever a kingdom of Palestine. Remember, there was a Gaza, and there were the Philistines, like Goliath. Remember the wars. Remember the Tyre, where Tyre was, current day Lebanon, right? Think about all that. Okay. So they wanted the United Nations was directly behind, and the Federal Reserve and funding the invasion into our country. The reason why is because for the New World Order government to basically grow in strength, you have to have a larger population. And you think about what they are, all these illegals coming into our country, the aliens, to include probably human, foreign terrestrials, and probably even non-terrestrial aliens have flooded into our country. And the more people they bring into our country, the higher they're saying your economy grows. Without more people, our GDP stagnates. And that's putting them under the monarchy, under the conditions of subjectude as pheasants, right? Peasants or whatever, right? For the crown, for the future global New World Order. They don't care who comes in. They don't care. Look, it's already been proven, whether anyone likes what I say or not. They've already brought in all these thousands of murderers, drug traffickers, human traffickers. Why? Because they're benefiting from it. They look down from their ivory towers. They shut down everybody if we're not, speaking perfect Oxford English or whatever. We're speaking American. They look down at us. They think we're stupid, that we haven't figured it out ourselves. Well, look at Acorn. Look at Acorn. They were caught producing thousands of fraudulent voter registrations. They pretty much shot down. Remember, Obama, as community organizer, they went through Acorn back in those days before they were revealed, and undercover journalists figured out what they were doing. Then it went from Acorn to Organizing for Action, where they put about 30,000 foot soldiers on the streets of our country whenever they're called upon, foreign and domestic. When Organizing for Action was basically revealed, and there's getting too much heat, they moved to National Democratic Redistricting Committee. It's an organization. Within their organization, they have Antifa and Antifada organization. Funded by the New World Order, new government, shadow government. And when it went from, like I said, from Acorn to Organizing for Action to National Democratic Redistricting, so those that were involved of directing the invasion into our country, they were basically transporting those individuals with U.S. tax dollars going through the Federal Reserve, through those interest payments on $38 trillion, right? They were funding the invasion into our country and setting up. Remember, it went from Acorn Organizing for Action, 30,000 foot soldiers on the ground when they need them. To National Democratic Redistricting Committee, organization to direct action. So organizing for action to direct action. The direct action people are the militant, armed, radical part of that organization. And remember, they're not all domestic. They're both foreign and domestic. Antifada and Intifada are both involved. They're communist organizations. Okay, with that said, there's enough information, but there's so much criminal corruption going on in this world right now. We can't defund law enforcement. We have to have it. We have to have a big enough law enforcement, DOJ, DHS, even a military, and we're going to have to start bringing some of those troops home. And we need to adequately secure that border from those professionals, covert operatives from other countries. Iran just made the threat. They made the threat. And remember, they're waving at the funeral for them to mourn the death of the Ayatollah, right? Khomeini, whatever. They're flying the flag that they just created, is the war flag against the United States of America. So remember, the UK didn't help us, and to help safeguard those ships transiting in and out of the Persian Gulf and the Straits of Hormuz. They were absent. They were AWOL. The Italian Prime Minister, absent and AWOL, fighting against helping us with Iran. Remember, they declared war on us. So again, they were directly involved in the invasion. We got really, really smart people in office and leadership positions. We can't have those people roam the streets as free men and women. Okay? And that's the reason why they don't want this passed, the Save American Act. Because guess who they're getting their paycheck from in reality? The New World Order government, in my opinion. Now, Bill Clinton said himself, the only way to grow the economy or the GDP is to basically grow the population. And they don't care how many people live or die. They don't care how many terror cells have been brought into our country, because they benefit. Remember, local taxes, they benefited. All these blue sanctuary states, they're voting in our elections. And in my opinion, they're part of the broader criminal conspiracy to overthrow the United States of America or take us down. And that's the reason why Iran keeps calling themselves now a world superpower. A world superpower. They got help, believe me. And that's the reason, including the psychological warfare attacks. Those psychological warfare attacks originating from Iran and Iran's current leaders is originating from the New World Order government. Okay, 6 viewers. All I'm asking is that y'all share this information. That's all. I basically went through years and years and years and hundreds of possibly thousands of hours research. If you think alone, I've had over 100,000 views on Rumble alone. And that's after they deplatform me on YouTube multiple times. Now you think about it. The throttle and back this channel, shadow banning this channel. To this day, do you think they're allowing me the pursuit of happiness? Think about if they never deplatform me at the very beginning, how many people need information like this to basically develop hypotheses on their own and help out other people like myself get even more educated of all these crimes that people have been committing all these years. So, all right. And only suggestion I have is be very careful of who you share information with when it comes to our technology. You know, I'm looking at, like, for example, what looks just like a exact duplicate of our AWACS plane that China supposedly built. There's a lot of people getting these positions and they're only interested, and look at all the protection they have. So another thing I want to talk about very, very briefly to help y'all understand what they're trying to do. They destroyed our middle class. Now there are businesses that are finally reopening again, but think about what they did during the, let's just say, pandemic. Think about all those mom and pop independent patriotic stores and restaurants, and you have it, that were shut down. They were targeted. They were targeted. That was our middle class. They were targeted for the New World Order or the shadow government. And the reason why they wanted to bring in an invasion of the socialists and communists is because they have no problem with subjectitude. They don't have a problem being subjects. To give them free money, they don't have to work for it. In many cases, what do? They still go out there and spend their money, don't they? They still pay taxes. They still have to pay for their gas, right? Look at all the taxes they have for their global warming BS con, right? Even in our country, they want to grow. They want to take down the middle class and lower our GDP instead of making our country stronger than ever it was before, used on patriotic, helping to build up the GDPs of the sovereign American citizen families. That's their main goal. Now, again, go back and look at after that speech and pay very close to that speech about sovereign, reaffirming he's the sovereign. He basically controls the military. So basically, in the Straits of Hormuz, and anything with Iran, remember all those people that fled from Iran went to the UK. They have multi-million dollar, the British dollar or whatever, homes and assets all combined, and living in not the hard workers, not the middle class in the EU, right? No, they're bringing in, that's the reason why they're bringing in socialists, and even terrorists when the real patriots and they're citizens of their country that help fight for their country, and a lot of them die for their country, they're bringing in the opposite. The opposite. This is to cause chaos. Remember, he was lying day and night against our brethren before he was cast out of heaven. Remember that. Satan was lying about our brethren day and night and was cast out to the world. He's when you think about chaos, the changing of the times, what do they call it? The times and the days, changing of the times and days, changing like they have the power to change the 10 Commandments. Oh, that's all right. In this situation, we gave you the green flag to go out there and what? Commit acts of terrorism. That's what they're doing. Okay. So what I suggest to President Trump is, and his administration, to refocus on the middle class, and I'm pretty sure they're doing a good job of that. But we have to understand that's the reason why they brought in, to basically deplete the wealth of the hardworking, patriotic American citizens and replace us with new subjects, with the 21st century slaves that are predominantly communist and socialist. We need to help enrich and give the American citizens, the middle class, and in some cases the upper class, and in some cases those that are teeter-tottering, and the lower class, and also the lower class. We need to enrich through the proceeds of the tariffs or whatever. That's the reason why they don't want tariffs, because they do not want President Trump and this current administration to enrich the middle class and some of the upper class. We're talking about the good people that are out there every day, starting civil disturbances, planning interstate riots in adjoining states and states all the way across the country, because they're conservative states, law-abiding states. They're not sanctuary cities or states to crime. And remember, we have the justification in Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, which reads, and I'm quoting directly without reading it directly from the U.S. Constitution: the United States shall guarantee to this union, to each state in this union, a republican form of government, and will ensure against invasion and against domestic violence. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to use, in part, when we're talking about cleaning up our elections. All the information that you have right here can be proven about the fraud. Okay? It's all here. It's all out. Whether they waited until after the statute of limitations ran out or not, it's been a broader criminal conspiracy, which I believe, to overthrow the United States of America, if you will, to overthrow the supreme law of the land, which is our United States Constitution. Remember, in Egypt, Mohammed Morsi was nearly successful in doing that. Think about that. And think about who put him in charge. Okay, with that said, is there anybody in the chat or viewing this live stream on YouTube that has anything to add in the comment section before I shut down the live stream? Is there anything that I didn't make clear enough? Yeah, of course, you have your own opinion. You're going to formulate your own opinion, especially the more evidence or information that you review, you're going to make your own opinions. And that's primarily what this channel is for. Take the information, share it, make it your own. Listen, you don't have to say who. I don't want people to know my private life, so I don't care. Use it as your own. And remember, in God we trust. Everybody else we have to trust. If we trust some people, we still have to verify. Okay? Trust but verify. In God we trust. Good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you're from. This concludes the live stream, and God bless. Thank you.